Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, we are here on a supporter stream, and we got a couple guys on. We got Quinta's back, and we got this unknown guy showed up from Florida again. I mean, who are you again? Got Brian is back from down there in Florida. So he actually teaches some Linux down there at Daytona Beach, right? Is that where
Yep, Daytona State College.
Daytona State College. So Brian's a Linux instructor and a physician, so still practicing medicine too, right? Yep.
Correct.
Yep. And for
Dual
those
career.
curious, he's moving into Linux and out of medicine because of the craziness going on in the medical world.
Exactly.
Just keep that doctor's office practice going up just for the medical insurance, you know. All right. So how's everybody doing?
Fine. It is so hot here. I don't think it's 100 degrees. It was 100 degrees about a week ago.
It says it's 68 here, but no, actually it just jumped up to 70, but it still feels so hot. I'm actually running air conditioning today. I hate running air conditioning. I rarely ever do it, but I've actually had the air conditioner running for like 2 days.
We run air conditioning every day, starting from March onwards.
Yeah.
Even before that, like February, we start running the air conditioning every single day.
Yeah, well, down there in the south, that's unfortunate.
Sure, it's probably hot where you are too, Brian.
Yep, it's 86 right now.
Let's see what it is
here, and it was 97.
So I used to live out west, and the thing that people had out there was instead of air conditioners, you actually ran swamp coolers.
Ooh.
Because there was like no humidity at all, and a swamp cooler is much more energy efficient than an air conditioner. And so, as long as you could, as long as you're in a dry climate, a swamp cooler is way more effective. So that's what we ran. Of course,
my weather is not loading.
Yeah,
it just is blank.
Oh, yeah, it's like no, it's too hot, man. I'm lethargic. All right, so we got Leo from Netherlands. Greetings, but he will not be here for the show. Well, thanks for stopping by and saying hello, Leo. Simple Tech, greetings to you as well. Metal Lord, happy. It turns out, yeah, the LGBT stuff is declining in the youth. All right. Okay. I think that was a case of they just kind of went too far over the top, and people were just shaking their heads like, all right, y'all just gone too far. I don't know. Bruce Scott, hello to you. We got Paul on. Greetings, Paul. Hello, Cat Gamer. Meow. Working on a surprise. Surprise. All right. Okay. Let's see if the AI can detect how happy you are. It might. No, non-rumor, greetings to you. Is the Kenny old enough to drink? The Kenny? Which Kenny? Is there a Kenny up here? Kenny. Bueller. Asher Stepp, greetings, Mr. Banana Man. Brandon, hello there. So Vince will be on in a minute. We'll wait for Vince to jump on before we get started here. Watching a new dual monitor setup. Very nice. Yeah, I started running dual monitors when I started doing more live streaming. It's so much more efficient. I got the one screen of activity over here. I got 2 control screens over here. It's epic. Of course, the guys on the chat can actually see part of the microphone. I have that just out of view for everyone else. So audio you guys just might need to crank up the audio just a little bit, and it is actually in my list, and if budget allows, then next month I will actually get a better soundboard that can push more power to the computer, and so hopefully we can have better audio, like higher, bringing it back to regular audio commands. But other than that, I was listening to what I was recording the other day, and the audio is just fantastic, man. Maybe we should have just killed that Meteor mic much earlier, but I don't know.
It's 90 here right now.
90. Oh.
It was 100 when we were down at our other place, which is a little bit farther south from here. We went over there a couple weekends ago, and it was 100 there. And our air conditioning for the upstairs part of the house is like one of those mini units, and it just can't keep up. So it was like 88 up there.
Yeah,
and it was 100 outside. It's crazy.
It's really cool downstairs because The downstairs, the air conditioning, it's just much more energy efficient. Upstairs, it's not bad up here, so it's not bad. It's just warmer than it should be.
We have, I think, the air conditioning unit there. It's a really old one for downstairs, and upstairs it's an old house that was built in the 1800s, and recently the attic was converted to an upstairs, and so it gets so hot up there, and the air conditioning just doesn't work.
Yeah, I've had one of those. I've lived in a place like that once where they converted most of the attic into a separate room. You could not keep it warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It was crazy. Hello, Vince. How's it going?
Hey guys, how's everyone?
Is that a new mic setup you have there? It looks like you have a mic. Or no, that's an outlet I see behind you. It looks like a microphone from here.
No.
All right. So what's the awesome, amazing hot temperature there right now?
It's 10 Celsius, which is about 50, I think.
Yeah.
But hearing you guys talk, it's making me feel warm already.
Yeah. So Brian, how's it colder where you are than it is where Quint is? You are further south.
Yes, I am. Must be the way the pockets of wind move or something.
Florida gets a breeze. Georgia doesn't, because Georgia doesn't have as much coast.
Yeah, that's true. You get the breeze off it. Yeah.
And I'm near the ocean. I'm about maybe 3 to 5 miles inland.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be going down there and visiting Brian there so I can hang out.
You're welcome.
And I'm probably like 100 miles from the ocean.
Yeah, I'm about 100, 150, of course. The closest I can from the ocean is Philadelphia. You don't want to be near the ocean in Philadelphia. But you head on down and head down a little bit, and you hit Rehoboth Beach. Is actually only about a 4 or 5 hour drive. I don't even think it's that far.
Yeah, Savannah is like 5 hours, I think.
All right. Well, I think we have a quorum here. We got a bunch of folks on. Let's go ahead and talk about the emotional AI, good or bad. So, what'd you guys think initially? So let me pull up the article view for you guys that are watching so you guys can see the article. So we're referencing this article from The Guardian. It says, AI can read your emotions, but should it? Initial thoughts, everybody. Initial thoughts.
I guess I'll start. Initial thoughts, I mean, like almost anything, it could be a double-edged sword. If people were perfect and everyone was benevolent, it might be a good thing as far as helping, but it's creepy because everybody isn't good, and people are going to wind up getting greedy and using it to hurt the people whose emotions they're reading. And if the artificial intelligence gets too intelligent, it might not even need people altogether, and people might become an annoyance to it. And, you know, Skynet might be starting. So, you know, it just reminds me, Brian Lunduke did a video years ago called The Internet of Things is Going to Destroy Us All. And it seems the further we go in that direction, the more of what he said is coming true.
Yeah, that was an excellent video. I remember seeing that for sure. All right, who's down there? Quint, I think you're next in the lineup, right? So, what's your thoughts, initial thoughts?
It just does not sound good at all. I read the article. This is about, I'm not going to spoil the article, but it was very, very creepy. And it just does not, when I hear that as the first thing, that's not a good sign.
And Vince, what do you think?
When I first read the article, it's written in such a way that it almost sounds like science fiction.
It does.
It does, right? But I mean, anybody who's a regular watcher of this channel will probably know where we're going with this. So I'll leave it till you explain it.
Yeah. So one of the things that struck me is how old the company is. Like 2007, I think, is when they said they started up. But then I got back to thinking about it and said, you know, this isn't the first time I remember seeing about this. The first time I remember seeing anything about AI emotional detection is actually surprisingly supermarkets. So your supermarkets are some of the most dangerous place for consumers in terms of revenue, advertising, and things like that. Every single thing in a supermarket is completely catered to what will make them the most money. That's why the things like the milk and stuff is generally at the very back of the store, because you got to walk through all of it to get to it. The shelves are laid out so that right about 3 feet off the ground is where your premium shelf space is. So the suppliers for the different items, particularly your cereals, your junk foods, things like that, they bid on the shelf space. So where they are in the space is completely dependent. And why is it? Let's see who here knows. I'm sure somebody knows on the stream. Why is it this height is the most expensive? Anybody know?
Easiest to reach, eye level for children.
Eye level for children. Because you're bringing your children to the grocery store with you. Mommy, have this! And they can just grab it really quickly off the shelf. But if it's up there, Mommy, I want that! It's a lot harder to get than just to grab it. And then it's much harder once the kid has it in their hands. It's much harder for the parent to say, put it back. And so where I first heard about emotional AI is that inside of some inner conventions of the grocery stores, they're starting to put this emotional AI facial recognition cameras inside of the cases, like the freezers for the ice cream and things, and they would track your eye movement and read your emotional state as you browsed over the different things. And they're trying to see what is it that people liked the most, what is it people didn't like the most, and then they use this to collect the data to go back and say, well, we need to maybe change the layout of the container or change the layout of where things are. Or if somebody completely scans 3 or 4 times, it means that their containers don't easily display well enough what the item is because people are having a hard time finding what they're looking for. And so that's the first place I saw this type of thing. So that is interesting. So they kind of started out looking at this AI, recording it with looking at some ads, and then they said that, hey, everyone had opted into seeing this. Now, I had an initial question about this, and the article didn't explain it, and I'm not sure the company would either. Is this they agreed to do it and that it was embedded in terms and conditions, or is this an actual study where people fully consented, they picked the little thing off, they called the phone number, and they went in for a study? I didn't catch any of that. But let's start with that point there. What do you guys think about using this type of article here, or using this type of research to collect this data? What do you guys think about collecting the data, consent, and things like that? We'll go ahead and leave it open, whoever wants to jump in there first.
Well, if it was a true psychological study, I remember from, my old college days at a university, they have a psychology department. You have to go to talk to the department heads, sign a bunch of consent forms, be interviewed by people, all this other weird stuff.
Emergencies breaking out in Florida, just if you guys...
Yeah, there's an emergency in Florida.
Was there another one, or is they sent out another Amber Alert for the same?
I think that's the same one.
Just an FYI, guys, there's an Amber Alert down in Florida. So if you are in the Florida area, pay attention to that. See if you can help. That would be awesome if Let's Switch to Linux live stream helped save a kid. That'd be cool. But anyway, if you're in Florida watching this, there is an Amber Alert going on down the Daytona area in Florida.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
Check your news if you're out and about, particularly if you're driving around and things like that. Help us out. Call the numbers. All right, go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's not a problem because anybody taking place in these academic studies, they consent to everything. It's presented with them. There's oversight. It's pretty well wrapped up. But if it's not an actual controlled study, who knows what they could do without people knowing about it behind their backs. I've seen some big companies and, especially profit-driven companies do some kind of wicked things behind people's back, collect a lot of data and use it in nefarious ways. And marketing is the least bad of what some of this data is used for.
Yeah.
Marketing is bad, but a lot of it's used for even more nefarious purposes.
Yeah. All right. Quint, thoughts?
I honestly think, like what you were saying, is that it was probably embedded in the terms and conditions. And there was probably some sort of study that was like, if you watch this ad, we'll give you a gift card for X amount of money. And then people just opted into that, and they didn't realize that they were actually using their camera to be watched to see how they reacted to the advertisements.
That's my guess, but I don't know. They didn't tell us how that occurred or not. Vince, thoughts on all this?
When I was reading the article, most of it sounded like the software was being used in the context of a market research group. And that's a very controlled environment. Like Brian was saying, people will go in there signing consent forms. But the concern also is definitely once this becomes more widespread, if it becomes a downloadable add-on for your Windows, or becomes part of the system, then who knows who is actually consented or not properly.
Well, I'm thinking that it would be embedded in a game. Like a lot of games, they make you watch ads to continue, and that there may be something like at the beginning of the game that like all the ads are being monitored.
Yeah, that is definitely, that's a possibility. That's the way this is. I'm probably leaning more towards what Brian and Vince said. I mean, I'm in a college town, and I oftentimes see these. They'll send them out in little coupons. Hey, we're doing a diet study. We're doing a psychological study. Come on in. We'll pay you $50 a month or something to come in and do the data. If it's something like that, I don't have a problem with them doing an examination. But let's go ahead and explain the study that we're talking about. So they had some ads where they had, for example, an ad which was for the boy on the piano doing a retrospective life of, was it Elton John? So playing his life backwards. And then they were measuring people's, like looking at what people's facial reactions were going back and forth with this throughout this video. And now one of the criticisms for this particular study, how this was done, is they're saying that you can't just take everything was based upon your facial recognition, what your eyes look like, your countenance looks like. And the thing is that if you've ever studied body language, you know that there's a few different nuances. So like in general, a person with their arms crossed in body language, the first thing you'll learn that arms crossed means is a person is putting up their defenses. They don't believe you, they don't agree with you, things like that. But it also is a relaxing pose if you lean back and you're tentatively, concentratedly listening. So there's nuance to figure out which one of those you actually mean. Are you having a discussion with somebody who hates what you say, or are you having a discussion with somebody that they're just seeking to understand? So an arms cross could mean either one of those things. And so there's some question about it. So again, they're training this AI just watching people look at advertisements. And so obviously that does raise some issues. But now what happens is we have this tool, we have this ability, and the biggest criticism is going in what Quentin had already alluded to. At what point in time is your camera actually watching you on your smartphone when you don't realize it's watching you? My phone's upside down. At what point in time does your camera see you when you don't realize it? What type of data is being collected and what type of software has been installed on your phone without you being aware of it because, hey, an update happened and you just pushed the update button because it said to push it, or it updates itself automatically. So what happens when this stuff gets embedded into your apps, gets embedded into your games? What do you guys think? Brian, what do you think about that part?
That's one thing that always bothered me about phones, which is why I don't carry mine with me all that much. And when I do, I usually keep it in a pocket or something where the camera can't really see out. Because phones especially, with the computer, if there's a webcam or whatever, it's easy to put a piece of tape over, unplug the USB cord, whatever. But phones are really tough because there's no file manager that's readily easy to look at what files are there. There's no way to easily look at what programs are there. Yeah, there's an app panel, but a lot of these things don't show up with an app icon. They're buried in there. They're running in the background, so you don't even know they're there. And people don't notice because unlike a webcam or something on a computer where the little light comes on when the camera's activated. Phones don't always do that. So that's something about phones especially that really bothered me, is you don't know who could be watching and listening or to you.
Yeah. And I remember when the that first model phone came out, which had the flip-up camera, how many times those cameras were just turning on. People were like, why is the camera turning on? I didn't call the camera. It's like, oh, an app called the camera. I mean, what do the rest of you guys think? Quinn or Vince, what do you guys think?
Well, I just don't really, I don't really like this at all. What I feel like I said earlier, is what's going to happen is that some kid is going to download a game off like the Google Play Store or the App Store, whatever, some reputable game, and then they install an update to the game. And in the update release notes and everything, it says that we added some sort of study into it for AI facial recognition. And then when they watch an ad, like a lot of games make you, like in between levels and stuff, you'll have to watch an ad. And during that ad, they'll see what facial expressions you're making. And so basically secretly embed it into the app.
Yeah, then you didn't know, because if you had read the release notes, you would have, which technically in our current world qualifies as consent. And I think that that's one of our challenges, that qualifies as consent, and it probably shouldn't. Yeah, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, having much more simplified user agreements just really needs to be a thing, because nobody reads any of the current user agreements at the moment. And it really is not such a big leap for someone to just embed something like this into some random app. You could just be downloading an app to check the weather, and people could just be measuring your response to the weather. But what they're doing is just gathering so much data about you for marketing purposes. But see, what I want to do, I mean, if I could play devil's advocate here, if I was a marketer, which I'm not, this is an absolute bonanza. Like, can you imagine gathering everyone's responses to whatever it is that you're putting out there?
Yeah.
It's gold, because at the moment it's hard, because you need to have someone sitting there with you to actually gauge how you're feeling or responding to something. So if I was a marketer, I'd be thinking, this is great, and this company is probably going to go somewhere with this, because the way the world's going, they with the Googles of this world and Microsoft of this world, they're gonna really make a monster if they do this well.
Yeah, and that's a concern. Let's go ahead though and focus on a few of the positives. Actually, before we dive into the positives, and there are a few positives, ultimately for me, the final endpoint, my deepest concern is when this type of data gets connected to the internet. That's where I think the biggest problem is. If this were something that a local system, like a local school district, were deploying this, and none of that data would ever be connected to any internet related service, just act as an early warning system for somebody who seems venting mad, I'm not necessarily concerned. But the problem is no service is ever like that in our world. Like, I would absolutely love to get a fitness tracker that does not in any way connect to an internet or some other like a cloud service. I would love to have a fitness tracker that I could wear, that I could do a raw data dump by connecting a cord. It doesn't exist, to the best of my knowledge. If it does, let me know. I'm a customer. I would love that data. I would love that information. But nothing in our modern society does that. So that being said, there are some potential positives, but I think they're way outweighed by the negatives. So let's talk about some positives, and let's just go ahead. What do you guys think brainstorming some positives would be, and then I'll pitch in whatever I think there might be that wasn't covered. Vince, we're on you. So what do you think are some of the positives here?
Well, if for example, someone was emotionally unwell, maybe, I can see that this could be some sort of a monitoring system that you could then attach to family members. They could sort of keep an eye on you if you're in a different part of the country or a different part of the world. Because sometimes if you're unwell, you may not even realize that you are. And so this might be a thing that people could do. They might get an alert. Someone close to you might get an alert if you are starting to go off the rails a little bit. So that's one positive that I think it could do if an AI could recognize that. But still, how that is sent across to the other member, it's going to have to go through the internet, and that's liable to be misused.
Yeah. So do we have some server that's not connected to somebody else's products, or how does it go through the internet? Would be a good question.
Definitely, it'll definitely have to go via an app on your phone.
Yeah, that's now we're getting back into shady territory, because who's intercepting that data for what purposes? Yeah, Quint, any thoughts? What do you think? Positives?
Guess a positive maybe would be like, I like where Vince was going on what he was saying about about if somebody's not well. Like, I think that would be a positive. The issue is stuff like this. I can't really think of a positive because I'm so privacy oriented.
Yeah.
But there's probably specific use cases for it where maybe, especially like a system in a school, like what you were saying, there could be a use case for maybe to monitor students of self-harm attempts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point that Quint made about using it in schools. I agree with him in that I'm hard pressed to really think of a positive because, I think things are getting pretty intrusive as it is. But I know maybe a positive might be that I know some ads really bother me. They kind of make me angry. And if they program these things correctly, if the server detects the ads actually making me mad at it, it'll take an ad that bothers me off and replace it with an ad I don't mind.
Except sometimes getting people angry is what an advertiser wants. Different ads require different things. There's some ads that are successful for their shock value. There's times, like if you're doing, for example, a political ad, anger is the first response you want.
Right.
Because if you're a one color party and you want people to vote for your party, you have two things. You can either make them feel really warm and fuzzy about your party, or you can make them really, really mad at not your party. And so
exactly.
it can still focus as a way to gear you in that general direction.
And that's why they have to program it correctly, because what you just said is absolutely correct. But let's say an ad that's trying to sell a product, there's some products I refuse to buy because I can't stand their ads.
Yeah, there's some new soap ad that's going on YouTube right now that I don't think I will ever buy. I don't even know what it is. Anyone know what that stupid soap ad is? When an ad has to beep out swear words in the first 5 seconds, I get really cranky about that. I'm sorry, I will never
swear
buy your
words
product.
in a soap ad?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you'll see this every now and again. Like they're putting swear words in ads, but of course they beep them. But when you want to do that a minute into an ad, obviously somebody's invested in watching it. But when it's in that first 5 seconds that you can't skip, I get angry about that. I'm sorry, I will never buy your product if that's what you're doing. But yeah, I'm surprised you haven't seen that ad, unless you're running ad blockers or have.
I run ad blockers, so I can't tell you anything.
Yeah, I don't on YouTube just because I want to support the content creators. So I don't. That's one of the reasons I don't have an ad block runner. I block I block most ad networks. I actually let Google ad networks through on my system, but yeah, let's go ahead and check in on our comments here real quick, and then we'll dive back in and see if there's anything else there in the article we want to do. Let's see. Let's say kitty old enough to drink, but the phone said otherwise. Hot in the South. Hello, free man. Greetings to you. 6 hours from the beach, a simple tech. Myself, I'm all for the evolution of technology. I'm just not for the evolution of technology connected to the internet. Maybe I just don't like the internet. I don't know. There's things I like the internet for. It's a place you need to be careful of. Oh, Sleepy, you're talking about bacon. Vince, what are you talking about bacon for, man? Come on.
Paul showed up.
All right. Non-rumor. Did you hear about Snopes fact-checking the Babylon Bee? Guys, in case you didn't know, the Babylon Bee is a Christianized version of The Onion. It is legitimately fake news. It is satire news. Just an FYI, Snopes, in case you didn't know. That is quite funny, though. I think Babylon Bee needs to do an article about that. My favorite Babylon Bee article, and I'm not a fan of the satire news. I don't like Babylon Bee. I don't like The Onion. I don't like those sites at all, simply because they'll get out there and then people will not realize they're satire news and read it and think it's real. And I think that raises a problem. You want to talk about fake news? That's fake news. But my favorite one that I saw was when all of this, Russians are doing this, Russians are doing that. There's an article about the Russians interfered with a church potluck. It was awesome. Hello, Ricky. It's on the Dell computer, Ubuntu 14.04. Wow. Never bring babies to the grocery store for routine tips. Yes. Actually, recently wrote a short story about an android who gained emotions. Very cool. I'm actually reading iRobot right now, which is a very fascinating collection of essays. Let's see. AI tech is bad in general. Kill it with fire. Except that oven, man. That oven fights back with fire. I'm telling you. Where's Richard Stallman? I don't know. Don't see any beards yet. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, I'm at a disadvantage in business because I will not do this. Yep, but your competition might. Hello, Anna Rita. Greetings. Let's see. Being as we are on Alphabet Company, they're probably collecting everything we do, say, or type, including mouse movements. Oh, you can probably bet on that. That's why I keep different isolated computers. Kitty wants to come up and say hi. Hello, Kitty.
Oh.
How you doing, buddy? There we go. All right. Okay. Okay, let's see. Passive surveillance is happening in many places. Oh yeah, it's like Walmart's becoming like a camera infused dystopia. It's kind of crazy. Using whatever soap your mama buys. One. I think that's the one. Simple Tech. Yeah. Okay. About the movie Iborgs, where the little cameras follow you around. Ooh, that sounds fun. Let's see. All right. We have gotten our comments caught up on. Let's jump on back to the article, see what other fun gems we can find in here. All right, so let's get down to the concerns. AI emotion raises concerns, too. Do we really want our emotions to be machine readable? How can we know this data will be used in a way that benefits citizens? Would we be happy for our employers to profile us at work? Perhaps make judgments on our stress management and overall competence? What about insurance companies using data accrued on our bodies and emotional state? Brian, I'm going to leave that one to you, being the doctor. What about insurance companies utilizing this data for that? What do you think?
That is scary as anything because insurance companies look for any excuse to deny claims. And if, let's say, you're wearing a fitness tracker like you were talking about, and you have a policy with whatever, XYZ health insurance company, and you have a heart attack and they have to pay the claim, if they know in advance that you have fitness data available and they can get it, they will. And if you got excited one day and they see a blip in your heart rate, they'll try to deny your claims as a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
And they will come up with creative ways to take your health data and manipulate it in ways that would make your hair stand up. to save a few
So,
dollars.
so they'll grab they'll say, well, we participated in an ad study, and that video game that you downloaded and you watched the ad in between showed us that you generally have a higher stress level than you admitted to on your application, and so we will thenceforth deny the rest of your claims.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
pricey video game.
And if they don't deny claims, if they get you during your renewal period, you'll see your premiums double or triple
Yeah, absolutely.
because they'll
All right.
say, "Oh, you're high risk now."
Yeah. What about employers? Employers profiling us at work. Vince, I think you have an employer, right? I know I don't. I guess you do at work
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Um,
We
so
because we've got a small business, so we've got a few employees.
yeah,
And man, would I actually, speaking as an employer, man, would I love to be actually watching all my employees all the time
uh,
to see what they're doing and see how they're feeling. No, I
well, I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
they got
yes,
this.
to see what they're doing, yeah, seeing if they're being productive or not, but also it is important to look after employees, and I agree with that. And if somebody's unhappy, I would want actually want to would know about it and find out why.
Hmm. So, are you saying that you would use this in a work environment to monitor how people are doing?
Um, Again, playing devil's advocate, it sounds enticing. It
Yeah.
definitely does, and you could quite easily slip it into your employment agreement, employment contract to say we're going to be monitoring you, and if
Yeah.
somebody wants the job, they have to sign off on it.
Yeah.
There
In
is
fact,
no.
one of the things that he said in here is, you know, do we, if a store uses this, or do we really consent to it? He says, well, we do kind of consent to it by merit of going into the store. And it raises this question, do we really consent to it if we have to eat and every single store in our town happens to have this data? I mean, what do we do? I mean, we could buy Instacart, I guess, and hire some guy at Instacart to go pick it up.
It's not informed consent if there's not a big poster on the wall as soon as you walk in that says you are being watched by cameras and your emotions are being watched by cameras, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it
that's a
something.
concern. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's a big concern. Now, in fact, that's kind of what goes on in China. Over in China, they actually have their mass transit workers have to wear these helmets that are constantly monitoring your emotional state and things. If they see that you seem to be stressed out or something, they'll send you on a mandatory break. So this is actually being used in real world applications right now, which is frightening in and of itself. How about this for school? Quint, you're in school, so what about utilizing emotion to track the students' emotions as they're going throughout the day? Positives and negatives, what do you think?
I think the positive of it is, like I said earlier, to stop self-harm, is that's a really big issue. That's one of the positives, and probably also just to see how students are doing with their workload in class, like to see maybe if they're too stressed out with all the work they have in class. But a negative would be this data is probably getting all sent up to somebody's server in the cloud, and then they're using that to do for advertising and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So if it's a student, they would probably at least have some agreement for now not to use it. But if a school could deploy this type of software and it never connects to a network connection, it's on a completely separate subnet, no possibility of getting onto the networks, onto the internet. I don't necessarily see it as an entirely bad thing in the context of a public school setting. I don't like it. I would, I always say if I had kids here, I'd homeschool them because I don't like anything the public school does. But I don't know. That's my thought.
My school doesn't actually have security cameras in the inside of the building. It's only on the outside.
Yeah. So that's good. You have a little bit of freedom still. That's good.
Yeah.
This professor talked about this. He actually wrote a book, The Emotional AI, The Rise of Empathetic Media. Man, I kind of want to read that book. That sounds good. He cautions us going down a Black Mirror avenue, of course, referring to this series. Quite easy to do dystopian stuff, he says. And I always urge, rather than saying it's really good or really bad, it's all about the specifics. He says emotional AI is dangerous when it affects future life opportunities. And he is especially concerned about the impact on the workplace. What we talk about is a 360-degree surveillance. Who benefits from that? I certainly don't think it's the masses of people within an organization, i.e. the workers. We have a suite of technologies, but then we also have this suite of financial opportunities. And it's whether these financial opportunities are a bit too lucrative for people to be ethically minded. Follow the money, as it were, is what he says. Yeah. So that's kind of... any other final comments on this article? Brian, go back to you. Final comments on this article here?
Well, what you just read, if somebody's financial gain comes at the expense of somebody else's right to privacy, I mean, it's not quite a good match. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it could be good, benefiting financially from data, but if you're hurting other people, and again, just speaking as a doctor, human beings weren't made psychologically to be continually watched and to be able to exist that way. If you continuously watch somebody, just knowing that they're being watched is going to make their stress level shoot up. So you're introducing that into your equation now. Are they stressed out because of something else, or are they stressed out because they know they're being watched?
Yeah, that's kind of raises a point, and I believe it was Snowden actually makes this point a lot, where he says, it's like in 1984, the telescreens at any point in time could be watching you, but you don't know at any point in time if they are watching you. And so you always act around them as if you always know they are. So even though you technically have, quote, freedom, you really don't have freedom because you never know when you're being watched or monitored. And so you behave differently when you know people are watching versus when you think people aren't. And so it produces a form of prison, whether we like to admit it or not. And I think that this raises that issue. Go ahead, Vince.
That's a really good point. And to be clear, I don't agree with always watching somebody and micromanaging people at work. Although some of my business partners would say differently because of that very point. Because if somebody knows they're being watched, they're stressed out. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be productive. In fact, it's gonna be the reverse. People end up leaving because of that. So I think having trust in people is important in a workplace scenario. But on Brian's point with the money versus privacy, unfortunately, the world we live in is driven by profit. And we mentioned insurance companies earlier. I mean, I've had my dealings with insurance companies as well, and it's one of those things where there are some things in this world that really should be driven by a profit motive, because if you ever need to call on insurance, something bad has happened, right? And you don't need somebody trying to weasel their way out of it, the insurance company, I mean, because they're trying to save a buck for their stock, for their shareholders.
Yeah. Quint, final thoughts?
Really, I just don't like the sound of this at all. Like, I feel like even though there are a couple of good possibilities, the bad ones are just way outweigh them. So, next time you update your apps, just make sure to read all the release notes and the privacy policies and everything.
Yep. And
sure. Yeah.
Have apps, you don't have to. There's a thought. All right. So we'll kind of hang out for here a little bit, and then I'll jump off early so these guys we can hang out offline here a little bit as well. Of course, I will be doing a live stream on my other channel here in about an hour and 15 minutes, so 9 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about do not worship at a mosque. Interesting response to an article I read today, so that's where the title comes from. So we'll be talking about that, and the kitty keeps on trying to move my thing. Kitty, should we feed this kitty? Should we feed this kitty cat? Let's go ahead and feed the kitty cat. Where are you? So, you guys chat for a little bit while we get the kitty something. Dude.
So I was reading the comments, and Anna Rita was talking about how she's got cameras in the home daycare that she has. And part of the reason is just to protect herself from any sort of untoward, claims that parents might have against her, as well as watching over the kids to make sure that they're safe too. And I mean, some parents are really funny about that. Some parents can be really quite, especially the ones who are privacy minded, definitely can be a bit funny about that. But I think if you're upfront about it, Anna Rita, and people know that that's what you're doing and what you're doing it for, I think that's fine.
Yeah, and especially if they're not internet connected cameras. If they're internet connected cameras, that's a different story. If the people's data, the kids' data is being sent up to Google or to Facebook or to Amazon or to any of these other companies, I think that raises some of the challenge. But if they're just offline security cameras that's recording stuff for your own safety, that's actually wise to do, because we are living in this crazy litigious world that everyone wants to sue everybody for every little thing, and it's good to have that type of evidence in case somebody makes a claim to have it. But as long as they're not all sent up to the cloud, then I think that's probably okay. That's my thoughts.
The downside to a lot of this, though, is that a lot of the cloud-connected cameras are the easy ones to set up, where you just plug it in and it works. And I've seen multiple businesses that ditch all their completely nice offline cameras and just go for Nest cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's getting it all sent up to Google.
Yep. That's true. So, yeah, that's my thought. I'll try and get to that. Passive surveillance happening everywhere. People don't realize it. Yeah, Rosemary, that's the one. The Sasquatch soap. Yeah, that's I really wish that YouTube, you guys have a flag system for inappropriate videos. You should have a flag system for inappropriate ads, and a few ads here and there will have a thumbs up, thumbs down, but I'd like to see that on every single ad. I want to say, click this. I never want to see this ad again, because I don't want a guy swearing at me in the first 5 seconds of an ad, even if it's beeped out, So yeah, that's the one. It's the Sasquatch soap ad. So Sasquatch soap, I'm never buying your products. And I would recommend everybody on my stream don't buy Sasquatch soap, because, yeah.
I need to look up. I want to see if I can find the ad. I'm sure they probably have it on YouTube. A lot of companies post their ads on their YouTube channel or whatever. Yeah.
Well, a lot of your ads are YouTube videos. There actually was controversy over a video that took the #1 place as a music video that took the #1 place for music videos, but it caused a controversy because they basically took out ads for it, and so it counts as a view if somebody views that ad on YouTube.
I'm worried now that there's going to be a lot of smelly, hairy people walking around.
Well, there's soap that's not Sasquatch soap,
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I don't dislike things just because other people are too dim-witted to recognize satire. Okay, could be a valid point, I guess. Liberating swearing shows progress in society. No, it doesn't. It shows a decline of civility in society is what it does, in my opinion. That's my thought. Anyone disagree on that?
Well, there's a time and place for swear words, but if you use them all the time, they lose their meaning.
Yeah. Okay. Does the medical industry even recognize or pay attention to HIPAA laws? Brian, I'll leave that question for you to answer. Does the medical industry recognize or pay attention to HIPAA laws?
That was very interesting. Sometimes they don't. I had a case where a relative of mine went into the hospital for something, and we couldn't find out anything about her condition because of HIPAA. But after she got discharged, she got all these literature from marketing companies trying to sell her products that were relevant to her condition, which they wouldn't tell her family about. And
Yep.
I had a case today. I got an email from a colleague of mine. There was a video on Fox News about a podiatrist in Florida who was cutting someone's obviously neglected nails, and the doctor didn't say the patient's name or show her face or anything, but he did give his name and his practice location so that if somebody lived in the area, knew the doctor and knew the woman, they would have enough information to figure out based on looking at the video who it was.
Wow.
Then you got doctors who, a while back when HIPAA first came out, the sign-in sheets, they would take them after you signed in, and they would either be mailing labels, which they would take off after everyone signed in, so people signing in later couldn't see them. They don't do that anymore. You walk in and you look, you see everyone who was there before you. Yep. Doctors are talking in the hallway in earshot of other patients about other patients' conditions. So they're frightening laws with horrible consequences if you break the rules. And the rules are sometimes enforced, but they're usually enforced for some poor guy who honestly tried but made a mistake or something. And people who continuously violate or purposely violate always seem to get away with it. And I'm not sure how or why that works.
Yeah, particularly the advertising one is particularly grievous, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anna Rita is calling out Vince. Vince, you would spy on your employees? No. Yeah.
I was joking. Joking. But
you were playing devil's advocate, which we need. We need the devil's advocate here showing up.
Yeah, I could see how that could be a thing.
You need to get yourself like a hat with horns. So every time you play devil's advocate, you put it on and have horns.
And slap a tinfoil hat on top of that.
There you go. Yep.
Tom, what are your thoughts about having security cameras inside? Because I know you have security cameras inside.
Well, there's a few factors to it. Obviously, like, if you had like a multifamily dwelling, I would not want to have a security camera in a child's bedroom because they're likely to be changing and things like that. So, definitely not connected to the internet. Probably not one in general there, unless there's a very specific reason, which would be a case-per-case basis. I like the security cameras inside because if I happen to go somewhere for a period of time, I can monitor everything that's going on, at least on the major entrance exits and everywhere that's important. So I like security cameras on the inside, but they're generally only on when I'm not here, so I can switch them on and off at will.
My house here was built with security cameras. We have 3 outside. We have 1 by the front door, 1 on the driveway, and 1 by the back door. And then we have 2 in like our living room kitchen, which is like 1 big open room.
Yeah.
And so when I connected them to everything so my parents could view them on an app, I disconnected the ones inside because I just didn't think they were necessary. My parents don't like it anyways. Like, the old owners of this house were kind of weird. I guess they wanted to like look at their kids while they were down there.
Yeah, like you have to be careful too with cameras. So, like, particularly if you're doing like an Airbnb or something, you cannot have a camera in a bedroom. You cannot have a camera in a bathroom or in otherwise what would be considered a private space. You're allowed to have them in a public space like a living room or a kitchen inside. But I mean, in general, it really depends. So, like, since I live alone, I don't care one way or the other. And since my cameras aren't accessible on the internet, it really doesn't matter. But, you know, there was a time when, you know, before I knew a lot about security and privacy, I actually did have my cameras available. And a friend of mine, because I had a friend that likes, he might be watching, hi if you are, he liked watching cameras and stuff in a variety of different places. And so he could actually access my cameras. And usually I think at that time I had 3 outside cameras, and I think I only had 1 inside camera. No, I did have 2 inside cameras, but really the 2 inside cameras, again, were only plugged in if I wasn't there. But man, if I had those inside cameras on and he's watching and I'm like, oh, I'm out of clothes and just took a shower and I'm meandering on through the house downstairs and wearing nothing, that could be kind of scary. You'll log into... You'll log into a webcam and see that,
Like
but
these cameras aren't near the bedroom. Like I don't know why they put them in there because they're not near. I guess you get a view of the back of our back patio doors, but
yeah.
it's
Well,
kind of weird. Like they weren't
I
even towards that. I
yeah,
think it
I
was so
have
they could look.
I
Go
have
ahead.
3 cameras that are inside here. I don't have any outdoors because it's a rented place. So I have 3 cameras indoors. One of them monitors the whole office. One of them monitors the back door. One of them monitors the front door. So that's why they're inside, because it's just more convenient to have them inside than
Yeah,
outside.
I guess I
But
think what they wanted to do is the original way it was laid out is that we had our DVR box downstairs in our equipment room here.
yeah.
And then we had there was a monitor upstairs in the master bedroom closet. And then there was the cameras outside and the cameras in the living room and kitchen. So I guess they wanted to be able to look at their kids downstairs when they were upstairs, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well,
the only thing I could
that
think
is
of.
a very logical thing to do if you have young kids. So,
They did have young kids. They were,
yeah.
I
So
don't
if
know
you
how
had
old they
like
were, but
3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and you got a playroom, absolutely, I'd wire up a camera that could be viewed from the kitchen or, from some portable device so that you can keep an eye on your kids during the middle of it. Vince, what do you think about that? Cameras to monitor the young kids in play areas.
Sorry, I was just distracted a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But yeah, I actually also I had a camera when the kids were really really young, because our kitchen is it's around the corner from where they sort of play, so I had a little camera where I was watching them there. But yeah, I definitely leave that off the internet.
Yeah.
It's only my local network.
yeah, I don't think their kids were super young. They were probably like 9 and 7 when they sold the house to us. So I guess maybe when they were younger, because they built the house 13 years ago before they had kids. So
Yeah.
I guess when their kids were younger, but I just didn't think it made much sense for us since I'm 15 and my brother's 12. So and my parents thought it was weird that there were cameras inside, so we just disconnected them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like if you had a house full of people, it's definitely a lot worse than for me living alone, because it's like there's one guy here and I know all the cameras and stuff. But if you have kids your guys' age, you don't really want cameras in there. You're walking around in your underwear or something. You don't need that on the camera feeds, stuff like that. Because that happens, so generally, I do indoor just because I rent the place and they're really only on if they're, if I'm not here. So, let's see. Any other comments here that are good? The representative gone. The stream's not for this. Switch links anyway. Well, Simple Tech, if you want to jump on over to the other stream when we're done, you can talk about God all you want over there. We'll talk about it a little bit over here, but... Oh, found the ad. Brendan found the ad. I'll not use foul language as a Christian concept if everyone's a Christian. It's not a Christian concept. It's a decency
I
concept.
have a link to it because I want to watch it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Yeah, Brendan, if you can find that link, if you could post that link or let us know how you found it, let us know. Sometimes I hate Arch so much. Matei is broken for a week. Maintainer's on vacation. Oh, Matei has been broken for a week and the maintainer's on vacation? No! All right, if you're on Matei, don't update it for a while. Oh, boy. business when you have any moment. Yeah. Nest cams is supposed to be able to determine if you're home or not. If you activate a feature, I found that 90% of the time it doesn't work properly. Of course it doesn't. Close those blinds so I can go all nature for the night. Are my blinds open? Let's see.
Brendan, I still don't see the link. It said you posted the link, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Maybe it got blocked, but I didn't get a notice to unblock it. All right, guys. I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up this stream, so I'll keep hanging out with the supporters here afterwards for a little bit. But coming over to the other channel in about 1 hour from now, we'll be talking about the response to that particular article. And thanks for hanging out, and see everybody later.